the polls close tonight. Speaking of Florida, Marco Rubio said something earlier, just as a kind of throwaway aside, that I thought was actually worth listening to.
This is a global event that will fundamentally change the structure of the world political order, the world economic order for a generation. This is a huge event that's happening, and for our country it's very impactful. That makes partisan bickering and potshots at this point trivial.
That's interesting to me. Just attend to that. A global event that will fundamentally change the structure of the world political order, the world economic order for a generation. At a certain level, I think he's right there. And I said, what we should already be thinking about the long-term things we want to change. The rise of China has been a disaster for the world. It has done nothing to liberate China. And we have had economic battles. China is tussling with America to be the dominant economic power on the planet. And we have had those kind of competitions before. You had it in the late 19th century between Britain, America, and Germany. But all those countries were, in an economic sense, in terms of their theories of economic liberty, and to a degree in terms of their theories of political liberty, playing on the same turf, too. China isn't. China, with the encouragement and cooperation of global corporations, has found the only economically viable form of communism, because we gave all our manufacturing to them. They don't have a domestic market. You know, if you go back to the 19th century, the way things worked is Britain would make a product and it would sell well in Britain, so you think you might export it. And America would make a product and it would sell well in America, so you think you might export it. And Germany would make a product and sell well in Germany, so you think you might export it. And at some point, all those people find themselves competing in the same space, on the same, by more or less the same rules. That's not what happens here. China doesn't really have a domestic market. I mean, it has a market in the sense that it has a market where they sell live animals that have been infected by bats, and it has a market in the sense that the lab rats at that facility in Wuhan, when they're no longer up to being useful as lab rats, are all sent down to the market to be the special of the day. It has that kind of market, but it doesn't have a developed consumer market in the way that advanced economic powers do. So it doesn't have the same considerations. And it has been an act of absolute folly to do what the Chamber of Commerce right has encouraged, the Koch brothers right, has in taking all America's manufacturing and giving it to China. And that's got to stop. And we should be planning for the stopping of that now. We shouldn't be waiting till the end of this virus thing. We should be actually planning that now. The other thing we should be mounting a full frontal assault on is those two codgers, Statler and Waldorf, Bernie Statler and Joe Waldorf from the Muppet Show, holding their debate the other night, and they're still talking about climate change. They're still talking about, I heard this group, Extinction Rebellion. Do you know those guys? They're the guys who go and spray fire hoses spraying red paint over ministries of finance across the world, that group. And they're all concerned because now that there's actually a real imminent threat, no one wants to worry about sea levels in the Maldives in the year 2120. No one's interested, or 2200. No one's worrying about that. We should learn that all the things they're saying are going to save the polar bears, save the three-toed Latin American tree sloth, or whatever it is they're upset about, are things that increase your risk of these viruses, like moving from, I mentioned yesterday, to the people giving up single-use paper bags or plastic bags at supermarkets and insisting on taking in their 2003 Charlie Rose tote bag that they got in the PBS pledge. And I got this pushback from people saying, right, Stein's an idiot. Doesn't he know that people can wash tote bags? Have you had a look at the Charlie Rose tote bag in the supermarket line that the nice lady, PBS watching lady, bought in 2003? It doesn't look like she's washing it a lot. She's bringing germs back to the supermarket every time. There's a reason that a dynamic, advanced society, before it lost its marbles, moved to single-use bags for groceries and all the rest of it. These reusable cups that they take into Starbucks. Entirely confident they're not just walking the old coronavirus back into your local Starbucks? We got to actually end that. The other thing, have you taken a look at the pictures of the subway system and the buses? These are people who are saying you can't have your SUV, you can't have your Toyota Corona or whatever it's called. You can't have can't have any of these vehicles. We want you on buses. We want you going to work jam-packed into subway cars. How do you think viruses spread? So the whole leftist world view of where advertising how much you care by making things worse for people has got to stop. Now, if you are a nice PBS lady, a lot of these PBS viewers are these ladies of a certain age who like to watch the PBS. I'm not saying anything against them. A lot of them are perfectly pleasant, perfectly nice people, but they're bonkers. They have persuaded themselves that entirely useless narcissism is going to save the planet. And so a few weeks back, that was kind of useless but relatively harmless. Now it's useless but endangering, and they should have it shoved back down their throats. And just to deal with other things that are related to that, we've heard, I think it's 7 TSA members so far. This is again something that Daniel Defoe wrote about over 300 years ago when he was writing about the plague in London in the 17th century, and he wrote about how the medical profession and other people in the bureaucracy started coming down with this. We now have members of the World Health Organization and the Centers for Disease Control have come down with the virus, and they've come down with it for some reason because one assumes in part because they're working on it, that that's true of the doctors in Italy, in Washington State, New York. It's very intimate. When you're dealing with ventilators, for example, in the intensive care unit, it's very intimate. Whatever protocols you follow, a microsecond, and it changes. And the virus passes from the guy you think you're insulated from through the protocols you have followed and into you. But we also have 7 people at the TSA who have tested positive, at least 7, and you got to bet it's a lot more, because these people are patting down your groin and grandma's crotch and all the rest of it all day long. How many groins do the TSA have their fingers in the course of a day? They're patting you down. It's the security theatre. It's never caught a single terrorist. It's a complete waste of time. We've had it now for almost 2 decades, and it still looks, when you're at the average American airport, as if 9/11 happened last week and they're improvising with a few hastily recruited staff and some trestle tables from Walmart. It's ridiculous. And as I said, a few weeks ago, it was ridiculous but benign. You put up with it because they can kick you off the plane. But now it's not actually benign. As we saw over the weekend, the TSA are actually facilitators of infection. Max Brooks and Mel Brooks made this video warning people of Max's generation, who are young, not to infect those of Max's dad's generation, Mel Brooks, who are old. And it ends with the hashtag "Don't be a spreader." Right now the TSA are being spreaders. They still haven't gotten their hands out of your trousers. And that's going to increase the spread of infection, because the security theatre now, and so this is this is, if Marco Rubio is right, and this is going to, as he says, quote, fundamentally change the structure of